Hey legends, and welcome back to the Sim Racing channel, where we like not letting a point go. Some days ago, we did a video regarding the importance of car setup and lap times. For the most part, it went down well, and many of you appreciated how key this largely overlooked element of sim racing actually is. Others felt I was misrepresenting the point because one of the examples used ended up being a bug in the time model to achieve its final time. This time, I want to clear up any misconceptions and reiterate just how important car setup is by using a completely different game to illustrate the point. Last time, we used Automobilista 2. This time, we're using rFactor 2. rFactor 2 is currently being used for the Legends series of open wheeler races featuring landmark figures like Jenson Button, Pablo Montoya, Peter Solberg, Mika Salo, and many others. The recent races have also featured Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel, not to mention Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, who are both rFactor 2 regulars. It's also being used as the official Formula E simulator, as well as hosting the virtual 24 Hours of Le Mans next month. So this game is no joke. What we're looking at here is the Metal Moro AJR V10. I became familiar with this car in AMS2 over the last few days and wanted to see how the same vehicle was rendered in rFactor 2. This car makes a good base for this test, as I only drove it yesterday for the first time in this game and haven't had a huge wealth of time to refine the penultimate setup of the gods. It's literally what I cooked up on the fly last night after a few hours of lapping Sebring. So what we're going to do here is show you one lap taken fairly close to my personal limit with the game's default setup, followed by a lap taken almost directly after, again close to my limit, except with our custom setup. Then we can compare the two. If you enjoy content like this, make sure to smash the sub and join us for future series where we delve into the ins and outs of sim racing. So without further ado, let's get into the racing. Alright, so here we are in the setup screen. You can see that we're going to set everything right to the defaults. I'm just going to run you through what that looks like in this car. You can very easily replicate this on your end if you so choose. Everything completely stock, and we're going to jump into the race with these exact settings. Now I'm going to skip ahead so you don't have to watch the out lap. I'm going to get straight to the flying lap. Alright, ignore that, doesn't quite matter. So taking the first turn quite hard, bit of scrub on the power, making sure we maximize the track, braking hard at the second line. Ran out a touch, just a tiny bit wide, but it should still be less than a tenth of time loss. Again, making sure to maximize the track, actually partially running out onto the dirt there. It's very important for me that I accurately represent what the default profile is capable of, given my limited skill set. Want to make sure that we do it justice, not trying to misrepresent anything in this video. I have to say there's a bit of uncertainty with the default setup. You always feel like the car's slightly on the edge, like any little thing could teeter it into a spin. Quite aggressive through there, and again, yep, catching the potential slide with some quick counter steer. Always a danger on that corner. And also here, yep, same story again. Definitely not feeling a huge blanket of security with the default setup. That's partly what goes into the setups as well. It's not just about the times, but about the sense of security and repeatability that it gives to the driver. So being quite aggressive with those curbs there. Not exactly the best example of track limits, but hey, the game allows it, so here we are. So on the whole, not a phenomenal top 3 lap, but certainly close to my limit. Especially through here, nice and smooth, and then gradually on the power after the apex, and then coming back across the finish line. 151.98, remember that time, because we are now going back in to type in our custom setup. So the very first thing we're doing is we're minimizing the front and rear wings, believe it or not. I'll explain why we're doing this after the video ends. So 2 points up on front and rear suspension, and we're minimizing the ride height as far as the game will allow. Dropping the rear sway bar by 1 point and neutralizing the toe completely on front and rear. And we're also dropping the slow bump on the rear and bumping it up by 1 on the front. This is for the sake of the car's balance under both acceleration and under braking. It will help stabilize it under both scenarios by doing that. So one of the tricks in rFactor 2 is to minimize the tire pressures, and we've also minimized the camber as much as possible. So the tire pressure thing is something that I will talk about, as well as the minimizing of the downforce at the end of this lap, but for the time being, let's focus on the lap itself. Now try and contrast this to what you just saw. Right, taking the first corner quite hard. No real fear of oversteer. Car is very direct in its handling, maximize the entire track quite easily. Car's very pinpoint. As you can see, I actually cut in too much as opposed to running out wide there that time. The car's handling, as you can see, is almost more arcade-like. It's more one-to-one correspondent with my movements. You can see in a way it's more bouncy on account of the lower tire pressures, but at the same time it oscillates less because of the heavier suspension. So we both made it absorb the bumps better, but not keep oscillating the suspension after the fact, which is very useful. Alright, the track where we almost spun last time, how's this gonna go? Not a problem, not even close to a problem, even at high torque. Far more grip with this setup. Far more honest to my inputs. Which is kind of amazing to think given that the downforce has been minimized. But we will talk about that soon. Go flat out through here, let's see how this combination of corners treats us. Nice and easy, no hints of oversteer again, very direct, very easy to cut through the apex. Not sure if that would be considered as part of track limits in real life, but it is in the game, so we'll take it. Alright, the litmus test. This is where most cars often want to spin, but we're not doing too bad. Yep, just cut it straight through the apex there. Nice and tidy. And let's see what kind of a time we get. 149.56. Can you believe 2.5 seconds on a quick setup knocked together after about an hour or two of play last night? It's not an insignificant amount, and certainly if you kept kind of tinkering with this car, you could probably get it comfortably into the 148s, possibly 147s if you're, obviously far better at driving and tweaking than I am. But this car's performance, I would say, is very commensurate with the kind of prototypes that would generally race on Sebring, and the times that it's achieving are pretty much landing there. Now, to address the elephant in the room, why did we lower the front and rear aero completely? Why did we make such weird adjustments to the camber and the toe settings of the tires? Well, this is an ongoing experiment of mine. It's no secret that I'm a huge rFactor 2 fanboy. As a whole, it probably represents my favorite simulator from a driving perspective, but I have heard a lot of dissenting opinions from prior users who were once major fans talking about major gaps and blind spots in the actual physics engine of the game. And one of the things I heard was that you could do extreme setups like this to gain lap times by lowering your aerodynamic profile but still balancing it with the camber, the toe, and the rear sway bar. So this was one of my attempts at trying this. I heard this primarily worked with the GT3s, possibly the GTEs, but this is the Metal Moro. This was developed by Reza. This was a completely external developer using the rFactor 2 engine to achieve, I guess, similar results. I mean, under these settings that I set up, the car probably should have been performing worse rather than better, so it appears that there's some credence to the idea that there's some major flaws in rF2's setup system or physics engine behind the scenes. It doesn't take away from the fact that the game is massively joyful to play and still feels very realistic when you're playing it, but there appear to definitely be some drawbacks to this one, and it's unfortunate that the developers refused to address them. With that being said, you can see that in both AMS and rFactor 2 and many other sims out there, whether or not it's a realism issue or a bug or whatever, the car setup factors in so much into your final lap time that you have to come to grips with what you're doing. Having a cursory knowledge of car setups is critical just to get the general balance of everything that you're driving feeling right. It doesn't matter whether it's real life or a sim or whatever, but you can tell that when in a sim there are some blind spots like this, you can really exploit them to your advantage, as many of the aliens in rFactor do to get the top tier times in order to compete at that level. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope that illustrates the point I was trying to make on the original video without relying on any Automobilista 2 early access bugs. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to smash subscribe to stay up to date with all future sim racing news, reviews, and odd topics here and there. And until next time, we will see you guys later.